CBS 2 celebrates the life of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
Tonight's headlines. Once again, Iraq promises greater cooperation. But is it too little too late to head off war? Kuwaiti soldier accused in plot to poison U.S. troops. Martin Luther King Day debate over how to achieve his dream. Also tonight, Eye on America. This man was a victim of identity theft. You'll be interested to hear who the thief was. A serial killer on the loose, a city living in fear. And they're on the brink of extinction. Can cloning save the pandas?
This is the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather reporting from CBS News headquarters in New York.
Good evening. The screws are tightening down on Saddam Hussein to cooperate with United Nations arms inspectors or else. Punctuating the message, the U.S. Army's 4th Infantry Division and other units, totaling more than 37,000 U.S. troops, were ordered today to prepare for deployment, at least some of them possibly to Turkey. And Britain announced it is sending 26,000 soldiers to the Persian Gulf. Whether those troops go to war with Iraq may depend on what the inspectors report to the Security Council 1 week from today. CBS News has talked at length with the inspectors, and correspondent Elizabeth Palmer followed them on their rounds today.
The inspectors had been looking for signs of a nuclear weapons program at this militia training camp near Baghdad. What they got were pledges to die for Saddam. But rising aggression from the Iraqis and the U.S. is just what Chief Weapons Inspector Hans Blix was anxious to defuse. After weekend meetings with senior Iraqi officials, Blix announced they'd made concessions.
We need to come to an effective and credible inspection process, and we've come a long way on that.
The main points of the agreement are Iraq will encourage their scientists to hold private talks with the inspectors without government supervision. They'll also support the inspectors' access to private sites like houses or farms. And the Iraqis will set up their own team to search for banned weapons that may have been overlooked. But these concessions are minor compared to the major differences that remain. Iraq refuses to allow U-2 spy planes to fly reconnaissance for the inspectors. And it cannot or will not provide the proof demanded by the U.S. that it's destroyed stocks of nerve gas and anthrax.
Begin asking all those who allege that we harbor such things to come up with the evidence. They failed to do that.
Saddam Hussein, looking unusually jolly, assured Iraqis today that he's not worried by the pressure and he's sleeping like a baby. The pressure will continue to mount as the UN inspectors scramble to prepare their report for the Security Council next Monday. They want more time to continue their inspections. The United States is steadily running out of patience. Elizabeth Palmer, CBS News, Baghdad.
In Washington today, U.S. officials made a point of letting the impatience show. And Chief White House correspondent John Roberts reports tonight they made it explicitly clear Saddam has very little room or time left to maneuver.
8 weeks into UN inspections, White House officials said today it will be Iraq's cooperation with inspectors that will make the difference between war and peace, not evidence of a so-called smoking gun.
Either they will cooperate or they won't. And it will not take months to determine whether or not they are cooperating.
In a new offensive leading up to next Monday's UN report on Iraq, the Deputy Secretaries of State and Defense will lay out the case that Saddam is not cooperating. Among other arguments, they'll contrast Iraq's behavior with that of South Africa when it agreed to give up nuclear weapons. Chief UN Inspector Hans Blix told Dan Rather South Africa was a model for disarmament.
South Africans said, look, here are the places we think you should go to. And they indicate a lot of places. And then they say, if you want to go anywhere else, just tell us. We'll take you there. Military, civilian, we'll take you there.
White House officials admit they don't know where Iraq may be hiding its weapons, but they are convinced Saddam never destroyed thousands of liters of anthrax and nerve gas. The Secretary of State was unimpressed today that Iraq turned over 4 more missiles capable of carrying chemical warheads.
It is their obligation to come forward, and we cannot let them dribble this information and dribble these items out for as long as they choose to in an effort to thwart the will of the international community.
At the United Nations Security Council today, America's perceived rush to war was met with new skepticism. China, Russia, and Germany urged a political solution and more time for inspections. But Secretary Powell indicated The time for tough decisions is near.
We cannot be shocked into impotence because we're afraid of the difficult choices that are ahead of us.
While UN weapons inspectors themselves complain they need better cooperation from Iraq, they also make a compelling argument to postpone any war, saying their very presence on the ground there is an effective deterrent that has so far frozen Saddam's abilities to pursue weapons of mass destruction. Dan?
John Roberts reporting live from the White House. If it does come to war with Iraq, the United States does not want Israel drawn into the fighting. That's why U.S. troops are in Israel this week, setting up batteries of what are called advanced and improved Patriot missiles at a seaside camp near Tel Aviv to protect the city from Iraqi Scuds. The Patriots and their crews will remain in Israel indefinitely. The U.S. has also put Patriot batteries in Kuwait to protect the more than 12,000 U.S. Army and Air Force personnel on duty there. But as CBS's Byron Pitts reports from Kuwait, missiles are not the only threat facing American forces.
There's a new and dangerous reminder for U.S. troops here. This may be practice, but it's not a game. The enemy